Welcome to the Secure Dynamics TechCast. With me, I have two former guests. I have Daniel Shuler, who's the CISO at Exponent. Welcome back, Dan.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And I have Mike Manrod, who is the CISO at Grand Canyon Education. Welcome back, Mike.
Thank you, Ashwin. Great to see you both.
So, Daniel, I'm going to attribute this to you because you came up with this idea first about COVID and cybercrime, right? And the whole analogy being, hey, how we are treating this pandemic, and then how does the equivalency of that tie into cybersecurity? So I'll let you lead the conversation.
Well, there you go. No pressure, right? But I was thinking of, what do we learn from each, and what can we apply to the other? And there's lots of lessons already learned in each, but the idea that when we look at how we're going to patch something, or we're look at how we're going to test a patch, I was thinking and watching the news and learning about all of these events, but how are they planning to vaccinate? How are they planning to test those vaccinations and all of those things? But then it almost gets a little humorous as you start thinking through all of the other similarities in the situations. And then maybe it's a good idea to reflect and figure out, well, what can we do better that maybe some of these vaccinations manufacturers are doing? So what is it? What malware propagation, is that the virus spreading, or quarantining? Is that network segmentation or quarantining of a device? I don't know.
I mean, I definitely think it's a great idea, Daniel. It really could go viral.
No, I don't.
Got to slip in those dad jokes.
Yes.
Yeah, but Mike, again, you had some thoughts on this, right? To add on to what Daniel said.
Yeah. I really do think there are a lot of analogies, and I feel like we've spent a lot of time as an industry making a lot of military and warfare analogies. But I feel like some of the stopping an infection, a biological infection, really does have a lot of parallels to stopping a malware infection. So, for example, we have defense in depth. Mm-hmm. We know that a vaccine is not going to be 100% effective. We know it takes a long time to get to that herd immunity cutoff where community transmission stops. And we know that there will be a long in-between period, which we've now entered, where they're distributing a vaccine where we'll have to overlap protections. You probably want a mask, you probably want some distance, you probably want some hand washing. You want the vaccine, and all of these things together, hopefully will come together, but with both near-term, outer shell defenses that get us through the next few difficult months, and then some more core root cause defenses, such as vaccination and immunity, that hopefully get us completely beyond this.
So taking this conversation forward in terms of just looking at the vaccination as this panacea, right? Everybody waits for that, and then things are back to normal. But also, again, drawing the parallel to what's happening right now with SolarWinds, but also in general, the supply chain is identifying something that is so can be amplified so quickly, right? And God forbid something happens to the vaccine. But again, you look at it as an attack source that if you were able to get to that, you're probably going to infect large swaths of people. And the same thing, I mean, the SolarWinds is a great example of looking at that and something of this magnitude of something that's monitoring so many devices in the network. And if you can get to that, if you can get to the source code and infect the source code, and then you have privilege escalation, SSO, obfuscation, and so on and so forth. So are we getting to that point where spray and pray was always one of those things that people talked about, right? But now you can actually get extremely targeted, and you can actually get this multiplier effect. And how does that play out?
Well, I think if we look at some history first, right? You look at all of the different ways that the threat actor has figured out to creatively distribute something bad, right? You're infecting app libraries, you're infecting update libraries, you're infecting or compromising or wedging yourself in the middle of, just a phishing communication, right? Like there's all of these different ways. And I think if you're putting that into even a vaccination supply chain and the way that we might get those, are we going to get the vaccination we're expecting? Are we going to, like you were mentioning, are we going to get the properly refrigerated vaccination? How do we know all of those pieces along the way are working? And I think it's a challenge in cyber to ensure that you have a trusted supply chain, that you're getting network devices from a trusted entity, that they're not including something they're not supposed to include. So yeah, some interesting parallels there, but also some interesting challenges.
It's too bad you can't get a checksum, you know, like a SHA-256 on the vaccine. I want to verify that hash to the one that's supposed to be on record before you stick the thing in my arm.
Right, or a packet or network trace as long as to make sure it actually came from where you're expecting it to come from. That's you know. Yeah, because with vaccinations, right? I mean, there's a lot number. There's a something, so you know where it was generated. You know at what date and time it all kind of I wish I could talk more intelligently about how it all happens, but the idea that once it's all brewed up and packaged and shipped out, like they know that it's good then, but are all of the pieces along the way good? Is that supply chain good?
Yeah, and one of the analogies, again, as you were talking, came to mind is you have like what Moderna and you have Pfizer right now, but then there's going to be J&J, there's going to be AstraZeneca. So, but you and I, as consumers, we don't have a choice, right? We go to whatever CVS or Walgreens and get our shot. So in some sense, it's also that same thing about, hey, you're getting an NG firewall, right? And yes, you do some testing. So are we again at that point where, is there going to be more of these? I mean, Mike, you mentioned defense in depth, but are we getting to a point where, just like the internet economy, there's going to be hub economies, and where you literally have no choice but go to vendor X because they are the de facto, right? And again, trying to see if there's an analogy over there in terms of understanding what is it. I mean, as consumers right now, given the extent of the pandemic, we don't get to choose whether we want manufacturer A or B. But as practitioners, you guys have the choice in terms of how you detect A versus B. So are those best practices also changing, or is it, I mean, I hate to use the word herd mentality, but is it the same thing of saying, hey, because my CISO friend X says this is good, I'm going to go with what she's saying?
Well, I think there are some interesting comparisons. The FDA gets to choose which one we see first. Large companies collaborating get to decide, and some of them hopefully will do very well at it. But as an end user, I don't get to decide. So I may get to choose one firewall vendor or another as a curator of the process, or one antivirus or another, or the various products. But unfortunately, the end user who's the recipient of that is maybe the victim of, I choose one that tanks the performance of his or her laptop on one end, or I choose one that doesn't work, and then their results are impacted because the product I chose failed, for example. So I think there's a lot of analogies, and I feel like we're implored, whether we're security leaders or healthcare workers, healthcare leaders and decision makers, we're implored with making good decisions, and I feel like we're accountable for the integrity and results and outcomes of those decisions.
And Daniel, given Experient's position right now, just in terms of being that consultant, the advisor, I mean, you also are in a pole position of making sure that you maintain that level of trust and integrity in terms of what you recommend, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, there's our whole quality assurance process is first and foremost as it comes to how we deliver results, findings, reports, data to our clients. So, you know, the idea that, you know, we're remaining true to that and being able to do that is absolutely, you know, of utmost importance. The interesting thing that Mike was mentioning, you know, it seems that if there were some of these standards and best practices, which we've seen very little of in the security space, and just because it's evolving so much, but I mean, if we even just look back to some of the network protocols that have been established as these are the standards, you will communicate your mail on this port, you will do these things, enabled industries to grow around them and do these things. So I think it's part of the challenge in selecting an endpoint product. Like, I love that analogy of it's going to break stuff and it's going to protect stuff, and just inherently that's what it's going to do. But it is part of the beauty of it as well. I mean, it's the idea that you can build the systems and programs to do what is best for your business, and it's part of the challenge, part of the beauty.
Great. I know there's lots more to unpack over here. We just, again, not we. Daniel, you hit upon this analogy. I think like we already talked about a variety of different things that uncanny parallel over here. So I'm sure we're going to come back to this. So looking forward to future conversations.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ashwin. Thank you, Daniel.